Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psalm 150 Talk Show. My name is John, aka The Blind Fury, and you can find me at www.theblindfury.com. Now, if you want a chance to be on this show, all you have to do is go to my website, click on the Psalm 150 Talk Show, pick out the artist that you want to talk to, and then join us on the date and time appointed. That's all there is to it. If you have any questions, drop us an email at psalm150@theblindfury.com. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psalm 150 Talk Show on this beautiful Resurrection Sunday. I am John, aka The Blind Fury, and you can always check me out at www.theblindfury.com. And as always, hosted or co-hosted, I should say, by the most beautiful woman on the face of the planet, my wife, Tanya. Say hello, Tanya.
Hello.
And tonight we have one of the guys that is the originator of one of the funniest comedy bits I have ever seen, Rik Roberts from Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome in, Rik.
Hey, thanks for having me tonight.
It's a pleasure to have you. We've had some good chats already in just a short time, so I am ready to get this thing rolling. So let me explain to everybody. We see some new names. The way we do this is when it's not a huge show, you can jump in when you want. Just make sure you unmute your microphone, ask Rik a question, make a comment, whatever. Just be respectful of the others so they can jump in and talk as well. And that's really about it. Just be respectful of everybody else and have some fun tonight on a beautiful, beautiful Sunday evening. So, Rik, before we get started, now I will tell everybody, I love telling stories on my guests. And I've never met Rik in person, but I did call his phone number and he actually answered. And it shocked me because I was expecting an answering machine. Do you remember this, Rik?
Yeah, I answer it just like an answer machine instead of with personality. So I think you thought it was a machine.
Yeah, it shocked me. And I said, like, I delayed about 2 or 3 seconds. I went, "Oh, Rik, yeah? Like, who's the goofball on the other end here?" And I said, "I didn't expect you to answer the phone. I expected a voicemail." And his response was so calm. "Well, we can hang up and you can call back and I can let you get the voicemail." So I thought that was pretty funny. So, we've been in touch since, obviously. And so here we are tonight. So, Rik, tell us how you got into comedy and what provoked you to do that. And then we'll open it up for other people.
Yeah, long story short, I went to a place one night to play guitar and didn't know till I got done playing the guitar that it was a night set aside for comedians. And it was a contest. And the people that had the least amount of votes over a series of weeks went up first, and the people that had the most votes went late in the show, and I was brand new, so they put me first, and there was nothing. It wasn't a comedy club. It was a restaurant/bar on a Sunday night at 10 p.m., which should have given me a clue something was up. But I played a couple of songs and just looked at the audience, and I didn't expect much, but they didn't give me anything. And I'm like, "What do y'all want to hear?" And they yelled out a lot of flowery language, and in there somewhere they said something funny would be good, so I played some silly song that I wrote in college, and they kind of chuckled. And I was walking off stage. The MC said, "Did you know tonight was a comedy contest?" I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me."
Oops.
I'm like, "I'm sorry." I mean, I literally ran out of the club, and I was hopping in the truck, and 2 guys came out and said, "Man, where are you going? That was great." I'm like, "I didn't even know I was doing comedy." They're like, "Well, you were doing like some kind of Andy Kaufman thing. We know what you were up to." I'm like, "No, I wasn't doing that Andy Kaufman type non-comedy comedy, but I didn't know. I kind of embarrassed myself, but they taught me to come back in because apparently you get a sandwich for going on stage, and I was a broke.
All right. And what's good?
Yeah, it's chicken Parmesan hoagie. I sat there and watched, I don't know, I think they had 25 people in the contest. So I watched 24 people do 3 to 5 minutes apiece, and I had never laughed so hard in my life. Some were bad as me. And some had already been on TV, Evening at the Improv and stuff like that. So towards the end of the show, it just got better and better. And as you were getting tired, when it's 12:30 in the morning, but the comics just got better. And I thought, man, next week I'll come back and I'll try to write a couple of jokes, and slowly kind of started things off that way. But I always 100% believe if I knew it was a comedy night, I wouldn't have gone, and I wouldn't have been doing comedy for 30 plus years now. It's just one of those things where you know, John, God puts you in a place or a situation you're not sure why. And even at that time, you know, it wasn't even on my radar that it was something I should pursue as a career, but it was an opportunity, and I came back and I've had a chance to do it and help other people out with it, which is my favorite part.
Yeah. So do you think you're ever going to make it?
Oh, man. I'm giving myself 31 more years.
31.
If that doesn't work,
Right.
So
what's harder than comedy? I'll get into acting and see if that works.
yeah. Okay. Well, if you need a sidekick, I'll be right there. Just let me know. You're only a couple hours away from me. So
yeah.
If you need a chauffeur, hit me up.
Oh my
Right.
goodness.
No. Tell them where we'll end up.
Uh-oh, John, you're muted. How'd you get muted? I did not do that. I did not mute my husband. I promise. Okay. No, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So,
That was weird.
yeah. One more quick question, and then I will open it up. But so we know you're in Nashville, and this particular show is based out of the state of Kentucky, and that's where you were raised. So where was that, and what took you to Nashville? Was it the comedy?
Yeah. So I grew up in Woodford County, Versailles, Kentucky, which I didn't know was actually pronounced Versailles until I went to college in West Virginia. That's how good my education was. So I grew up in Versailles. If you've driven by there, the big castle.
Oh yeah.
My elementary school is right behind there. It's a red brick building. It's still there now. It's like the Department of Education. But we watched them build that castle in the 70s, you know, brick by brick. And we would kick the kickball over the fence so we could get that much closer to it. And man, you won't believe how big it looks on the other side of the fence that you can see through. You know?
Yeah.
Then I went to college in West Virginia 4 years, lived in Columbus, Ohio for 10, and then comedy took me here because after 10 years of doing comedy and, you know, traveling from Ohio all around the country, I kind of realized I'm a clean comic, and that's really suitable for a lot of conferences and conventions. And, you know, Columbus had that, but not like Nashville. Nashville just had so much more convention business. I thought I'll move down here and work more close to home, not have to travel as much. And, you know, that's pretty much the reason I'm here.
West Virginia, where you at?
Little school called Bethany College, just about 20 miles north of Ogilvy Park, which is just north of Wheeling.
Mm.
Wow.
My
That's
family was, what's the name of that place? Where the glass company is?
In West Virginia?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Pittsburgh Plate and Glass was big in Pittsburgh, but I don't know about West Virginia.
No, I can't think of it. But yeah, my family's from West Virginia.
My son played Division II football up there in West Virginia.
Right.
Many trips to West Virginia.
What's that?
Where was that at, John? Because I think it's close to where my family was.
He played at Alderson Broaddus University up in Philippi, West Virginia, about an hour from Morgantown.
Okay. Well, I can't think of the name of the town. It was a small place, but yeah.
So is Philippi. Very small.
Yeah. So it's official now. Everybody jump in, ask questions, and make your own comments. It's just, again, keep it respectful and let others talk, because I have a problem with not allowing people to talk.
Right.
Who just agreed with that?
Jackie.
Hey, Tanya, mute Jackie.
You know I'm a big talker, John.
That's all right. That's all right. So I tell you what, let's do it like this. Jackie, you go ahead, and then we'll call out in order on my list here. And that way we don't get too confused at first. So why don't you go ahead and talk to Rik?
And say what?
You have a question?
He's
going to be the comedian tonight. Do you have a question for him?
No, I really don't.
I think today was the first time she's our friend that watched you today. So I think it's the first time she had seen you.
Yeah, I'm happy to meet you, though.
Nice to meet you, too. I can always use another comedy fan, and good to know
I
people.
would love to see some more of your funny stuff, though.
Well, I've got one of those dry bar specials. I don't know if you've seen those, but you can download this thing called a dry bar app, and there's hundreds of clean comics on there. You can catch a whole 35-minute special on there, so you can see the whole thing.
Yeah, John showed me one today from Andy Griffith's show.
So-
Pull
That
the
was
top over.
It was so funny.
oh,
All right. So, okay, Jackie, are you finished? I didn't want to interrupt. I was listening to my
No,
screen
I-
reader.
Good. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Chester, do you want to jump in and say anything?
Hey, yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Chester.
From?
Unfortunately, I know Rik. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
He's the reason I'm here. I actually do want to hear something else. Rik, you just mentioned Dry Bar. I'm curious, how that worked for you. How'd you get up there on Dry Bar, and what's that like?
Yeah, so for anybody that's watching that doesn't know what it is, it's comedy specials that are taped in Provo, Utah, at a comedy club that serves no alcohol, and they've just got it set up like a television studio. Basically, they film multiple comics a night. They cut those clips together, put them out on Facebook, and also release the full comedy special. And it had been going on for a while before I did it. Although I heard about it maybe 2 years before they actually got it rolling. A friend of mine who books country clubs and stuff out in that neck of the woods said, "Hey man, we're going to set this camera up, and you get a video of your show, and you get paid for coming out. We'll fly you out there. It'll be a good deal." And at the time, I had just done a couple of things where I was kind of the guinea pig on some projects, and they never came out. I thought this will be another one of those. So I said, I let it roll for a couple of years, then maybe I'll do it. And then when Facebook hit, it kind of really rose its profile. I'm like, I should go do one. So called up one of the guys that had booked some comics in there and said, hey, if they need anybody for the next season, I'd love to do it. And he moved me up the line a little bit and got me on there. And it's really a ton of fun. Now, the recording now, limited audience, obviously. But back when I did it, it was packed house. You do 2 shows. And I did 2 separate shows. The early show was different than the late one. And then they just kind of picked what they liked from the 2 shows and cobbled it together into one special. And yeah, I don't know what else I can tell you. I'll tell you now that they have the expense that they have to cover before you start getting paid to cover all the production and editing and all that kind of stuff. And just last week, about 2 years after I filmed it, I've recouped enough for them that I'll actually get a couple of dollars here and there now. So it takes a little while to get any cash from it, but you get a lot of great exposure, which is what I was looking for, and really high produced quality comedy clips, which, I mean, the lighting, everything is set up good. My backdrop was not good for mine. It had a bunch of dead animals on a traveling Conestoga wagon. So
Because you're from Kentucky.
I don't know, maybe.
That's right.
But when I walked in there, that's the only thing that I wish was different. I'm like, what is, they're like, well, we let art students do it from the local college as part of their credit. I'm like, can you just pull the curtains in front of it? Because it looks like I'm at a roadkill, like deli cart or something. It looks like Marilyn Manson's garage or something. It's just a
Did you go
mess.
looking for them, or did you go looking for that opportunity, or did somebody contact you?
Well, they contacted me originally,
Yeah.
but like I said, I hadn't seen it yet, and said, well, I'll wait for it to come around. By the time I caught on to it, it was kind of hard to get on there. So I called a couple of booking agents that had booked some comics on there, and they said, oh yeah, you'd be perfect for it. We'll get you in there. And they were able to connect the dots for me.
Yeah.
Hey, Rik.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Is this fan big enough?
That's a great comedy fan.
She's at it already.
And you know what? I might start putting those right behind me on the stage so it blows any droplets of COVID-19 right back into the
Oh my goodness. All right. So that was Sherry. She's got her question in. We also have Jake in here.
Hey, Jake.
Howdy.
How's it going, buddy?
Going well. I realized recently that you and I know the same guy, Whit Schiller.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm one of the fish sticks. Anyway, had a question for you. A guy asked me recently, this is going to be the second week, to help coach him in stand-up, which is super weird. But do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah. I mean, tell him what works for you. Tell him it may not work for him. I know you do more improv. So if you're not comfortable teaching him stand-up, I mean, you know the elements and the way to construct jokes, obviously, from doing it on the fly and everything. But I would have him get on stage as much as possible and go on stage with some stuff he's already worked out. Make sure it has good, strong techniques to it. Make sure there's a big surprise in every joke, or else it's just a story. Stories are fine, but if you're going to do stand-up comedy, there has to be an element of surprise in everything you do up on stage. And there's a lot of levels to it, obviously. You can do 2 or 3 jokes to make the audience think the third joke's going to be like that, and then you take another right turn there and give them 2 big surprises with your punchline in a whole different direction. But the writing is the key. And if he doesn't like writing, then he'll never like stand-up because he'll never get good enough to where he has a good show and enjoys it. So 99% of it is writing, and really 1%, especially in the early phase, is your performance. Because he's probably not going to perform that great as an entertainer up front, but if he's written good material, or at least as good as he can think about and put it out there, he'll have more success with it. But if he's one of those guys that just kind of wants to wing it and get up there and see what happens, I'll tell you what happens. Not a lot. I've seen, even when I've done that in the past, unless I have some ideas strung together and worked out, it's hit and miss at best. And you want to hit as much as you can when you get out there. But tell him to be patient. Tell him not to expect anything until he's done 100 shows. So if he's not doing 5 or 10 shows a month, he's not going to get there in a couple of years. If he's doing 1 show a month, he'll never get good at it. You can't part-time your way into comedy. It's something you have to really, really bear down on, and probably spend more time than your friends and family think it's necessary to get good at it.
All right. Well, before we move on to our next participant to chat in, just to let you know an upcoming schedule. Sorry, guys, I'm not been feeling that good this week, so I'm a little bit out of it. Next week, we have Mark and Deanna Gungor, Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. He's an ordained minister that has run these marriage conferences across the country in a pretty unique way. And that's kind of cool for me because I'm in marriage ministry myself. So we'll have them next week. And 2 weeks from tonight, none other than another comedian, Mr. Bob Smiley, will be here to chat with us. And for you people who love comedy, in July, we have Henry Cho, also from Tennessee. I'm sure Rick's probably run into him once or twice.
Yeah, remind me to tell you a Henry Cho story in a minute.
Oh, we're all in. I will email Henry and tell him that you told on him. Oops, I didn't mean to tell you that. I should have told you after I did it. So, Dave Moore, you want to speak up?
Sure. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Doing well, Dave.
Good. I just want to tell you one thing that I always look at the weather report before I go to Cracker Barrel now.
Especially in the spring, right?
That's great.
Now, do you get up? Well, I'm in Bardstown, Kentucky. So do you get up here in this little area much? Or I know with COVID, it's kind of shut everything down. But
yeah, I used to get to Louisville quite a bit back in the day before things kind of shut down. So that's pretty much as close as I got. Although I think there were a couple of, I can't remember if it was like a big steakhouse or a country western bar. It's been a while, but they would put on comedy shows once
Hurricane
or something. Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to get back up there. Like I said, I grew up in Versailles, so anytime I get back across, it's funny, like Tennessee, pick any joke I do, it'll get a certain reaction. I go to Kentucky and it gets the full reaction just because the people have this, I wouldn't say the exact same mindset, that'd be crazy, but they have a similar disposition, and some things are just funnier to Kentucky people than they are Tennessee. I don't know. I really can't explain it, but Kentucky shows are a ton of fun. They're the most fun I have anywhere I go.
Right.
Have you pulled any cops over lately?
I haven't pulled any cops over lately, but I almost hit one on my bicycle today. And I was going through an intersection that I wasn't supposed to go through. But when you're on a bike, it's stopping completely and then firing it back up is a real hassle. So I turned the corner and it was clear, and all of a sudden there's a cop right there, and I was able to go down some alleys and shake him, but he almost got me.
Can you do a Don Knotts?
Well, how you doing there? Well, how you doing there? Everybody.
I cracked up today when John showed me your Don Knotts video. Oh my gosh, it was so hilarious.
Thank you. Yeah, Don Knotts was always my favorite. Him and Gilligan. So I grew up in that era.
I love Gilligan too. Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, I'm 52. So those were like the Kramer of today, and whoever's funny to whoever it is today. But anything Don Knotts did, the more serious he tried to be, the funnier it was to me. When he was funny, it was just ridiculously funny.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan growing up.
Yeah.
Still am.
I'm a big Roscoe P. Coltrane fan.
Oh my goodness, I love that too, John.
My favorite show ever, the best character on TV ever. And I've got Tanya for my 2018 Christmas bought me the entire series of Dukes of Hazzard. So
No,
I am waiting for Rick to pull that one off.
Here we
I
go.
love it. Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, the boys.
That too.
Go.
Go get him, Flash.
Yep.
Right?
Pretty good, right?
We had a stray cat show up and John named it Roscoe.
Oh my. See, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Like I was telling Rick before we came on, I want him to tell the story about that particular bit because I found it interesting, but I don't see facial features unless I'm really, really, really close. But when
Right.
he went, hey, I thought that I bet you he looks just like him when he does it because he sounds just like him because that's what I have to go by. And I remember what he looked like because I didn't always have a loss of vision, obviously. So when he did that, and then I heard him say, "Can you roll down the window?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, he is killing me."
I get it. Yep.
That's the first thing I asked John. I'm like, do you remember what he looks like and how I said, he is the spitting image. You just, please imagine that.
Yes,
He really
I would
is.
love
And
it. That's so fun.
I notice every time, Rick, when you're the bigger your eyes are, the better Barney you are.
I'll
just
give you
get
one more since I've
Pop
got
those eyes out,
Yeah.
man.
back here.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. He's going,
He's
oh, look
getting
what he
revved
got.
up now.
Here we go.
Oh,
Here you
here we
go.
go. He's got the phone.
There, get me Juanita down the diner.
Calling his girlfriend.
Juanita. You're sweet, sweet from your head down to your feet.
Lee, what is it?
Then Andy walked up behind him and he got all embarrassed.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well,
I've
My
actually seen the
grandfather
show.
reminded me of Barney Fife, and so anytime I see you do it, it reminds me of my grandfather.
that's funny. Well, John, if some of the people watching really like that Andy Griffith show, there's a movie coming out this fall called The Mayberry Man. And I got to play a Barney Fife impersonator, so I didn't have to play Don Knotts because nobody wants to try to top what he was. But
Yeah.
I got to play an impersonator at this Mayberry Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to Mayberry Man Movie or mayberryman.com just to sign up for updates on when it's going to be out. They're shooting to get it on Netflix or one of those streaming services. So,
Oh, I'm so excited
it'll
to
be
see that.
out.
You didn't shoot yourself in the foot, did you?
You know what the funny thing is? First off, I didn't get to shoot myself on the foot. There was a perfect place to do it. And the producer was so afraid of even sound effects that would trigger somebody on the set because they had a couple of vets that were on the set.
Hmm.
And so I didn't get to, they could have put it in later and all this stuff. But I had a gun that was the exact same kind of gun he had on the show. And it was from the chief of police in Indianapolis where we shot this movie. And a lady brought it out every single day. It was a 2-week shoot. So every morning she was there at 7 or stayed till midnight or around the clock when we did the night shoots. She didn't want that gun to get out of her hands. And you know, I didn't want to drop it. I was so careful with it. But in the movie, it's Old Betsy is what I call her. It's this real weighted, heavy gun, a real gun. I think it was a Colt 45. I can't remember exactly. I'm not a gun guy, but it was identical to the one he carried in the show. So my holster hung down a little bit low and everything when I was walking around. Pretty cool.
That's
You
awesome.
have your one bullet?
I did keep a bullet in my pocket, but it's a plastic bullet.
Just
that
like
wouldn't
Barney.
float.
Somebody have any more questions? I know it's a little chaotic. So if you guys could do me a favor and mute unless you're talking to kill some of the background noise. I don't know if you guys are hearing it. It could be my headphones. So I admit that. But anybody else? Go ahead and jump in.
Everybody may know the answer to this, but I'm new at this. So he just introduced me to you recently. So how long have you been doing this, did you say?
So the first time I went on stage was May of 1990 or
Okay.
July of 1990. So
Okay.
31, coming up on 31 years.
Gotcha. We were watching a video and you were talking about going to a concert and you mentioned the year 1977 and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the year I was born.
So I'm 9 years older than, yeah, that was Kiss in 1977.
Yes, that was it. That was it.
The only thing I think that made me laugh harder than the Barney Fife thing I was imagining was well, that's a wagon full of ugly right there. I mean, that just came out of nowhere to me, so it just hit me funny. I was
You
like,
rewound
oh
it.
Yeah.
Like, what did he say?
So tell everybody your Barney Fife story, how you started doing that and how it came to be that you did that with the arresting the other police officer.
Yeah. So the nutshell version of the story is I'm driving across Kansas and a guy goes flying by me and I'm trying to make better time. So I'm trying to catch up to him and then he starts slowing down and speeding up. So I do the same thing. And then he starts kicking up gravel, so I think he's falling asleep behind the wheel. So I try to get his attention and pull him over, and I roll down the window and make the siren noise and all this stuff. And he ends up kind of freaked out because he's never been pulled over before and ends up writing me a couple tickets for it. But the origination for the whole bit, I was working in Omaha, Nebraska, probably 94, 95, somewhere in there. And I was working at the comedy club, and at the end of the night, I had driven all the way from Columbus, Ohio to Omaha. So I got there just in time to do the show. Didn't get to go to they had an apartment complex, apartment for the comics to stay in. The other two comics were working together. A headliner brought a feature act and they were staying at a nice hotel, but I was staying at the apartment. Anyway, I get the keys to the apartment, but I really have no idea where it is. They tell me, but when I drove to where I thought I heard them tell me to go, it was not the apartment complex. So I'm driving around for 3 hours with a set of keys. And finally I see a cop going by and I'm like, he would know where this, I remember the name of the apartment complex, just couldn't find it. So I started flipping my high beams and following this cop down this back road. And all of a sudden he hit the brakes and I almost ran into the back of him. He gets on, he had like a speaker thing, goes, stay in the car, put your hands where I can see them, And so he comes back, he goes, what are you doing? I said, can you help me find, Pine Knob Apartments? He's like, what? You chased me down and pulled me over to ask me where these apartments. He goes, how come you don't know where they are and you got a set of keys? I said, I'm a comic working at the comedy club and they put the comics there. I just don't know where it is. And I can't find, this is before cell phones and all this stuff. I said, I just don't know where it is. And he goes, well, I know where it is. Follow me. So he took me to the apartment complex. Then as I was getting out of the car, he goes, listen, you got any tickets for Sunday's show? I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm not in any trouble. And he goes, no. He goes, well, I'm not trying to bribe you either, but I can get free tickets for you if you want to come see the show Sunday. He goes, he showed me his badge, name, and number. He said, write it down. I'll be there. So I had this was a Tuesday night. He was coming out Sunday. So I had a few days to think if I want to tell a story about this guy on stage. What do I say? So that was kind of where I started putting together. Really, it was just one sentence at the beginning is, have you ever been so stupid you pulled a cop over? And people laughed at that. And then eventually I started adding on Barney Fife and stuff later on. But it was one of those things where it was a real situation, which is most of my jokes come from something real that I embellished a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I had driven across Kansas more times than I want to even think about. So I thought I'll work in Kansas and put the cop in Kansas instead of Nebraska, even though if I'm in Kansas, I'll say Nebraska. If I'm in Nebraska, I'll say Kansas just to pick on the other state next to it. But
it's not much different.
It's just one of those stories that kind of evolved over time. And the more I started telling, the more I knew where the laughs were. I had more fun with it. And I'd add a couple of other little things in the story. And if I'm doing it live and something, somebody interacts during the show, I might put that in the back of my mind when I'm interacting with them. If they're from Kansas or if they're from something else, or if they're a police officer, and then I'll drop that little nugget into the middle of the bit to, get an extra laugh that wouldn't be there the next night because that individual's not there. So there's a little place where I can kind of have some extra fun with it. Mm-hmm. But, once I get into that joke, it's 5 or 6 minutes long. So
yeah,
most times, I can't think of the last time it didn't really work, but if a crowd doesn't like it, it's 6 minutes, it just went down the toilet.
If they don't like the Barney Fife imitation, then there's something wrong with their laugher, because that is brilliant. I don't see how anybody couldn't laugh. But let's go back through another round in the same order so we kind of keep this organized a little bit. Jackie, you want to say anything else? You have to unmute.
No, I'm good. I'm loving just listening.
Okay. All right. Chester.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
All right, yeah, my muter is not working right, I guess. But Rik, have you ever got completely missed an event? I'm just curious. Have you ever missed anything? You either got lost or you forgot a date or some weird something like that?
Well, in 31 years, I'm happy to say only twice has weather kept me from getting to a gig.
Okay.
First time was fairly recently, maybe 3 years ago. It was in Minnesota, and I had a flight to St. Louis and then on up to Minneapolis, and I was supposed to drive an hour. And I got to St. Louis, and they stopped all flights into Minnesota because of a snowstorm coming in. And so I thought they would maybe delay the event or cancel. They went ahead and had it. I know a lot of comics after 31 years, so I was able to call up Darren Streblow, who lived maybe 45 miles away from where the gig was. I said, hey, I can't get there. There's nothing I can do about it, but I've got a guy that's better than me. He's been doing it longer. He's right there. Give him a call. And, I had already emailed and said, hey, can you do this tonight? He goes, oh, yeah, I'd be happy to help you out. So that was the first time. And then I didn't miss, I guess I was thinking about COVID when it first hit.
Yeah.
I was in the airport on the way to a gig, and they canceled like 3 hours beforehand. So that was one that I just, turned around. I think I skipped that and went to the next one before they canceled it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'd only missed one over the 31 years.
Yeah, you got really creative during COVID though, because you started up a lot of Zoom events. You got involved with that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time that I had thought about offering something virtually for companies. And all these companies had employees that were staying at home and working from home and all this stuff. And they kept, the events that I did have lined up, they canceled all, I lost 112 events during this whole thing. So, I started calling to say, hey, do you think you'll have anything virtual? They're like, well, we just want to unite everybody, but I don't know if a comedy show online will work. And I said, well, let me think of some things. So the first thing that came up was a show that I call American Idol, IDLE, like you're sitting at home not working. And people, it's kind of fun. It's actually been more fun than I thought it was going to be. But people will upload a cell phone video of them or their kids or their pet doing something kind of funny or cool or unique. And then I assemble all those clips into it's 45 minutes or an hour. Some of them have been half an hour long. But I put them in little categories like here's 5 wacky pets and here's 6 wacky kids. And they get to vote on who they think is the best. But what they're really doing the whole time is they're learning something about people they've worked with for 20 or 30 years maybe. But because they've been working and not working from home, they have a chance to show what they do, what their hobbies are and what they do for fun and what their talents are. So even though they were not in one place, they were able to be together during this time. And I've already had groups that are back to work that are planning their second one of those because they just had so much fun doing it. And once people saw the first one, they're like, oh, I should have signed up. And a lot of the people signing up the second time didn't participate the first time. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I've done plenty of virtual comedy shows. At first, I didn't really think it would work. But then I just realized if you've got a willing audience and a willing performer, it's going to work. It's just a little bit different. When I do those, I like to have everybody unmuted. It can be a little chaotic, so I have co-hosts kind of mute people that don't know they need to be muted. The people got the monkey on their head or their dog barking or their baby biting the dog or the dog biting the monkey or whatever it might be. But I like to be able to see the people in the show virtually and to hear them. And then also spend time talking to them like we're doing here. If I just talk to the camper for 30 minutes, I can record that and give it to you. But I like to be able to see what people are doing, seeing their reactions, and then I'll kind of involve them in the chat box a little bit with some questions that I would ask the audience, to raise their hand with. It's just easier to have people put the answer in the chat box, and I can scroll through there really quick and address different people individually from that. So, even though it's not been the way it's always been, there's been ways to have some fun over this past year.
Got anything else, Chester?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I know what Chester really wants to ask. Have I heard about the gig on the 31st yet?
Oh yeah. Where's that?
That's a great question, Chester. Thanks for dropping that on us.
Yeah, Chester's one of my comedy students who's he started online classes right when COVID hit. And so I'm trying to hook him up with a gig that I'm participating in at the end of the month. And I sent the guy your clip. And it's Easter weekend, so I don't expect him to holler back until Monday or Tuesday. But hopefully I can get Chester on that gig so he can get on stage and do some of the stuff he's been working on with me.
Yes.
Sweet. All right, cool. Well, if you have anything else, Chester, we'll go back around, I'm sure. So, Miss Sherry, you have anything for Rik? You got to unmute.
Yeah, you know, when you were talking about the Kansas, I know what you were talking about, because I remember my brother, my sister, and my dad and I, when we used to go to different states, Kansas was one of the places that we had drove through. And I know what you're talking about. We said it's flat.
Oh, you know, especially from Kansas City all the way to Emporia, it's just, there's nothing at all. You know, you see a cow, you get really excited because there's another form of life. You don't know if you're on another planet. It looks like Mars. It's all brown and dusty. And you don't know how fast you're going because you're not passing anything to gauge it by. So that's where I get in trouble speeding a lot.
Did you said your truck was a 2-cylinder?
3 out of 4 cylinder Isuzu pickup truck.
Oh,
I can't believe they didn't get more laughs. I thought that was hysterical too.
yeah, that's a good for 880 miles an hour.
Yeah, I clocked you doing 104 miles an hour. That's pretty good in a 3-cylinder Isuzu pickup truck.
Oh,
Great.
You know, Isuzu was a regional automobile. So some places I go, they've never heard of one unless somebody got it secondhand and drove it across the country. It was kind of a Midwest, I think. I think it was a Midwest automaker, but it didn't last long enough for people to really know about it.
Mm-hmm. I never thought about
But
that.
that's what I had. I put, I think, 683,000 miles on that truck.
Goodness.
wow.
But you did it the right way. Run it till it falls apart.
It's the Dave Ramsey method. Drive
That's
it till
right.
it blows up.
That's my mentality. If you don't believe me, ask Tanya.
Same here.
All right. So, Jake, you're up.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You got it.
Yeah, Rik, I do want to thank you because the other day there's some advice you gave on another podcast that really came in handy. I was doing a show and I didn't think it went well. I was doing the same show the next day, and your advice was the 3 S's: the smile, sell it, and the third S.
Slow down.
Slow down. Yep. So I really like that. I was curious if there's anything else that you think about before you go on the stage, anything like in that category, or like if you had 2 shows at the same place and one of them not as good as the other, and you're like, okay, well, I got to bounce back. How do I bounce back? And I have another question as well.
Okay.
But
Yeah, you know, before I hit the stage, I always say a quick prayer and pray that there's somebody that needs to hear something that maybe I didn't even plan on saying. Doesn't happen very often where I stumble into some category that I haven't planned on speaking about, but sometimes I have, and some people have come up after shows and started conversations. Sometimes just because I was clean and they'd never seen a clean comic ever in their whole lifetime. They're like, why are you clean? And I can say, well, it's my faith. You know, I want to come out and be a good representative of Christianity. And plus, there's plenty of stuff that's clean and funny, so that's just the way I went. So I always pray for an opportunity that I don't know about or don't see, that I can not be talking all the time to where I don't hear the opportunity, because that's a big tendency for comics to be constantly rattling and not listening to the audience. So that's one thing. The other is just to, and as I'm saying this, I'm starting to do it, talk as if people have never heard you speak before and they don't know how fast your normal speed is, and just slow down so you hear the words so they can hear the words. Because if you go so fast that you're skipping over words and missing consonants, they're not going to be able to get the joke in order to get the joke. So sometimes my shows, the audience was fine. I was just going so fast for whatever reason. And the reasons usually are, it's really late and I'm tired, so I'm trying to make sure I remember the next thing, or I've driven the whole way to the gig and I'm kind of exhausted. Usually it's from being tired, not from being rested. But just slow down and really communicate. You don't have to get 1,000 jokes into a 60-minute show. If you get 500 or if you get 50, but they get all of them, that's what your goal is. So a lot of times the audience is just a mirror kind of showing you back what you are. And if you're going too fast or not connecting, those could be the hardest shows. It's not impossible to get back on track. In fact, when I find myself in that situation, I'll just tell myself in my head, this is the best show I've ever done, and just try to reprogram my attitude a little bit. And also remember, somebody here has never seen a live comedian ever. So focus, do a good job, because you want those people to come back and see another show.
Fantastic. I have a gig soon for a retirement community. Any advice?
Yeah. So for that one, you're there for them 100%. If you get anything in return, laughter or eye contact or anything, it's a bonus. A lot of times, if they don't hear well, they'll miss the material. If they hear well, they'll still get it, but they won't laugh because they want to make sure they hear the next thing you say. And then obviously some people will be on medication, some people will be tired, some people have some different things they're dealing with. So you can't have the same expectation you would have with a normal show, but you'd want to deliver your show probably at the highest level you ever had and be more articulate than ever and be more dynamic and have more eye contact with people in the audience, especially the ones that are laughing, keep them involved the whole time. But just realize it's almost like a Zoom show. It's all for the people watching it. If you get some feedback and you feel good at the end of it, that's bonus. But the reality is the person that hired you brought you in because these people need to laugh a little bit. And so you're there just to help them do it. If they don't laugh as big as they normally do for your stuff, it's not a big deal. A lot of times when I've done those, they're just happy to come out of their rooms, be in a general area and be together and have something to do. So at the very least, you're doing that for them. So I don't want to say it might go great. I'll say that too. Sometimes it goes and honestly, sometimes you can tell the same joke twice and nobody knows. So just do whatever you think is right. Have fun with it. And yeah, that's the only thing I'll say. Just have fun with it, because you have to. There's all these different shows where you have to change the expectations, but deliver the content just as good. But just not worry about it as much for what you're getting out of it, which is hard to do because in comedy we get into it because we're hooked on the laughs. So when they're not the same as they normally are, it can throw you off. But keep your same timing. Maybe slow it down and speak up a little bit more. And it doesn't hurt in a situation like that to do a little bit more crowd work than you might normally do, just because it gives them a chance to participate a little bit.
I say that as we go around for the third time, when we come back around to Chester and Jake and maybe even Sherry, maybe they can give us some of their own stuff. What do you think, Rik?
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Put them on the spot and see what they have. So it is kind of funny. When I started doing this show and bringing in comedians, I do inspirational speaking at churches, and I'll pop off with some jokes because that's just my nature. But I've started writing some stand-up for something else I'm involved in. So now I'm getting all these tips and tricks and didn't even plan it like that. So thanks, Rik.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great.
So Dave.
Yeah, well, another thing you can do if you're going to nursing homes, especially if I'm a former Alzheimer's and dementia nurse, and so every time I went to work, I had a new show.
Right.
Because they couldn't remember it anyway.
Right. Yeah, my dad's going through that right now, and we have the same conversation 5 times in a half an hour phone call, over and over again. But I just have to remember that I'm there for him in those calls. He's given me his whole life. I don't have to worry about him giving me anything else. I just want to make sure that he's having a good conversation. As well as I do, you answer it as if it's the first time he's asked the question. My mom lives with him, so she'll actually hold up like 3, like, this is the 3rd time you said that. And he'll go, oh, I didn't know. So that's their way of getting around it. But right. Yeah, I just talk to him, and we talk a lot of Kentucky basketball, so it's been really frustrating. He'll bring up how bad they are 6 times in a half hour. I'm like, I know. Yeah, it hasn't.
Even I do that.
Well, I wore my Louisville shirt for you today, so
nice.
No. See, this is where we mute Dave right now.
What's funny is there's a Voices of Versailles Facebook group, and I grew up there, so I kind of liked it so I can follow the news. And last night or the day before, somebody said they thought they saw a UFO over Versailles, and I put in there, that's John Calipari looking for his 10th win.
Oh man. Well, I got trash talked by a Louisville fan Friday night or Wednesday, sometime last week, and of course it was all in fun because I don't trash talk, and I made oh, it was cleaning day at the church. That's what it was. I had my UK pullover on and he made a joke about it. And I had a good response. Unfortunately, I can't remember it. And then he says, hey, but we got you this year. I said, look, you and 15 other teams. It's not anything to brag about this year. He was like, oh yeah, I know. So yeah, I don't listen to Dave. He does that stuff to me just to get on my nerves, and it works because it does.
You know, the other thing I think is funny is before this year, Calipari would always say, we're everybody's Super Bowl. When they play us, they bring their best. It's like a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Next year he's going to say, we're like the Tax Slayer Bowl. We're not exactly the Super Bowl. We're like the Hardy's Bowl or something. It's not quite what it used to be. Hopefully they'll get back to it. We could have kept Johnny Dzang if we could have kept him at school.
Oh, man.
He's like 29 points last night.
Yeah. What a game that was.
Unbelievable, wasn't it?
Oh, my gosh. I can't see it that well, but I listen to the commentators and I can listen to see if I hear the net or the rim. And sometimes I can pick up what's going on. And when he hit that shot, I didn't see where he shot it from, but I knew it had to be a good distance. And I heard it hit the backboard and then I heard it hit the net. And my son texted me and I sent him a text. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Cause I think the biggest spread in that game was like 6 points the entire game. Anyway, fantastic basketball game, but I'm more of a football fan actually, but still that game last night was incredible.
Yeah. It was off the charts good. I didn't think UCLA could hold them that tight. You know, I think it was a 16.5 point favorite for Gonzaga. So to go into overtime and just lose on the last second 3-pointer, that, you know, UCLA's got a bright future.
Oh yeah. Well, that was near half court, wasn't it? Wasn't he like 2 steps over it?
Yeah, I'd say about 2 or 3 steps at the most.
Yeah. I mean, just an incredible game. So anyway, back to the Rik Roberts Show. Now, see, Rick and I could probably sit here for hours and talk hoops. So let's go back around. Oh, Tanya, do you have anything?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just soaking it all in. Jackie had to go. So she went off.
Okay. I saw
her son got injured last night. He flipped his Razor 4-wheeler big thing and he's not doing so well. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm nice to everybody else and it just hit me. I better ask her if she wants to say anything because when we get off of this, I'm still stuck in here with her and I'd like to do next week's show at some point. So.
I have no questions. I'm just soaking it all in, but I'm definitely going to be sharing your stuff because it is just laughter is so good. So I'm going to send it to all of my adult children to listen to.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I love clean comedy simply because even if you're not a Christian, I love it simply because it proves you don't have to drop all the F-bombs and sexual innuendos to be funny. You know, to me, I don't find that funny at all. And if I hear a word or two, I just turn it off because I want to hear somebody funny because they're funny and not the shock value of saying something so inappropriate that it makes me cringe personally. So it's just like music, filling yourself up with things that shouldn't be there as a Christian.
Yeah, you want good stuff going in, or at least not unpure stuff going in. That's
right. That's right. So I'm still trying to get. There was a comic I heard one time say something. I'm still trying to get it out because I'm afraid I'm going to say that to a bunch of people when I see them. It's something about a wagon full of ugly. No, I'm just joking. That was not bad. That was funny. I just wanted to set you up. That was supposed to be the shock factor. I obviously screwed that up. So,
you know what's funny is phrases like that. Sometimes when I don't have a big topic to write about or I can't get things going, I'll just start saying and writing down things that sound funny to me, and they might sit in a notebook. I've got a couple of pages in the back of my workbooks where I put those things, and then when I'm writing a joke, I'll look in there and see if I can grab one of those sentences and throw them in there. And that was one of those things, you know, wagon load of ugly I thought sounded funny. And then when I pictured Kiss riding this big tour bus, ugly right there.
Well, you know, that actually makes me feel good, Rick, because you can ask Tanya. I will run to my computer, especially now that I'm writing a stand-up thing. And I have the same exact thing. And I'm helping writing another show that I'm involved with that will be released at another time. And it's very unique, but it's got some comedy in it. So I've done the same thing. I've written a whole bunch of stuff out and I've gone back through my notes as I'm writing the script going, where can I put that line right there? And then I kind of put it in there, I guess exactly like you're talking about. Man, I'm going to have to charge for this. No, I'm kidding.
He's hilarious, usually at my expense, but he pops off stuff pretty quickly. And I'm like, I'm going to be the reason you write a comedy show. I know, because of all the crazy stuff I do. But yeah, she
is pretty funny. And I'll tell this story really fast and we'll get back around to it.
No stories on me.
But I was going to give her a shoulder massage, right? I just like giving her a massage. I'm a husband and I enjoy that. Make my wife feel good. And I asked her, she wanted to sit in front of me on the bed and our TV is on the far wall. And I said, do you want to scoot over here in front of me so I can rub your shoulders easier? And she said, I don't want to block your view.
I said, will you be able to see?
Same thing. And I'm like, I just looked at her like, really?
Your husband's blind. Did you forget?
Yeah, it's like I see things flashing around, but I have no idea what's on the screen. So I was like, I think I'm safe. I won't miss anything. I promise.
That was just being respectful.
I jot down a bunch of stuff and just little things that make me laugh. I don't put them all in there because they're all not as funny, but opening the HP printer ink and it says, do not drink.
Right.
Well, who did this that we would have to put that on the package in the first place?
How thirsty you got to be.
Exactly right. It must have lived in Tennessee.
Yeah.
That was against you. I noticed you didn't laugh at that one. All right, let's head back around. Chester.
Hey, yeah, no, I just I wanted to say, one of the things that you were talking about, Rik, earlier about being clean and about your faith and stuff. One of the things that I've been real impressed with, that's really made an impression from me from our coaching sessions is, would you perform that joke or would you say that if Jesus were sitting in the room?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something I think about now. Once I've written something, I go back and look at it, and from those lenses, and it really helps a lot. And there are things that I'm like,
Right. I kind of think of it that same way. If he's sitting in the front row, would he be like, hey, this is all right by me? Or would he just be going, oh no, 55 more minutes of this guy?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, in an hour show, people take from it whatever they want to take from it. So people will get offended by some things and you can't help everything. But the intention is never there for me to offend people. I'm not against trying to challenge what they think. So I think after 31 years, that's one more gear that I have that I didn't really have early on. So I might be in front of a whole group that thinks a certain way, but I know that thinking isn't necessarily the right thing. So I'll throw out an example or a joke where they might be able to see themselves in that and go, oh, that's how we're coming off as a group, So, but as far as the cleanliness aspect of it, I want my kids come to see my show. I want them to come and enjoy it. And when I do jokes about my kids, I'll run it by them and say, hey, I'll be saying this. And it's a little confusing to them up front because they're like, well, that's not true. That's a lie. I'm like, it's a story. It's a comedy story. It's paying for that cotton candy there. Okay, it's okay if you say that.
I think the more comical thing are people who are easily offended going to a comedy show. Now that's funny.
Right.
I mean, if you're easily offended, you're going to be offended. So,
right.
Chester, you got some material you want to share?
Oh, material I want to share.
Yeah, do you want to try to make us laugh? And we're going to let Rik give you some feedback.
Well, I wasn't ready for this.
Well, you want me to come back around to you?
No.
Okay. Well, I just mentioned it 5 minutes ago. Where were you?
You know what I'm tired of? I'm just tired of these chicken commercials bragging about how their chickens are raised without antibiotics. Without antibiotics. That's supposed to be a good thing. So we got a bunch of anti-vaxxers running the chicken companies now. Well, I got news for them. I ain't eating no sick chicken. If I'm going to eat a chicken, I want to eat a healthy chicken. I want to eat a chicken, a steroid abusing antibiotic juicing CrossFit chicken. I want to eat the chicken that kicked the other chicken across the road. Like I kicked chicken. I want to eat the chicken that wasn't afraid to have me for lunch. You know what I'm saying?
I can hear my wife in the other room laughing.
I'm sorry. I like that.
Yeah, I like that one too. He wants the Mike Tyson of Tyson chicken.
That's right.
That's right. That's good. That is good.
Good stuff, Chester.
Thanks.
Yep.
That chicken plucked his own feathers, hopped in the frying pan, still came around. Still
I
walked
was
out.
raised with chickens. I know all about some chickens.
Yeah.
She's from Adair County, Rik.
Okay, well that explains everything now.
Yes, it does. It does.
All right. Chester, you have any other questions or comments before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. I'm glad you shared that. That's pretty good. I will never look at a chicken again the same. It's a blind joke. You have to think a little bit with me.
Gotcha.
All right, Sherry, do you have anything, and do you have any material you'd like to share with Rik, just like Chester did?
Yeah, I have some materials right here.
Sorry, John, you can't see what she's doing.
Oh, that's right.
I know her sense of humor, though.
Well, anyways, okay. Yes, seriously, I do have something. There's, I think I was in first or second grade, and at this time when when we had moved into a new house and that, in our first winter in our new house, we had a neighbor that has a hill, and we would go sledding there. My brother's friend decided, oh, let's make a snow ramp. They did. And one thing about it is I'm so glad that my mom bundled me up so much that I could barely walk. Ever seen Christmas Story where
Yeah.
Yes.
Ralphie's little, yeah. Well, that, and I'm not exaggerating when I say my mom put me up like that. They went up, they made a snow ramp. We all went in this plastic long sled. They put me in the front. We went over the ramp. I flew out of the sled. I fell flat on my face, and they ran me over. I did. I got ran over.
Wow.
That's great. You were like the second ramp.
Yeah, I was gonna say not run over by a reindeer, but
They said I made a better ramp than.
Wow.
Oh.
All right.
Took you water skiing the next year, and the same thing kind of happened. Threw you off the jet skis, then you became a ramp, and they shot off the water.
Okay. Well, hey, Jake, what about you? You want to share some stuff?
Yeah, sure.
All right, shoot it at us.
I got a couple of questions though too. Do you want
Yeah.
where we go first?
Why don't you ask your questions first, and then
All
give
right.
us what you got?
All right. Yeah. So, Rik, I'm not sure how often you're working at clubs these days, but I know you've got a ton of experience. And so the hosting role, I was kind of shoved into it recently, and I wanted some advice, but all of the guys I knew were not, they just didn't know what they were talking about. So from like a headliner's perspective, what do you want out of the hosting role? And then how, like specifically if you're going up there and you're doing 10 or 15 before the feature, should I be doing crowd work? Should I be doing like who's here for something special, that sort of thing? That's my question.
Sure. Yeah, the MC job, it's so weird. In most comedy clubs, they typically give it to the person with the least amount of experience, and they only have 15 minutes material, and they're not headliners. But it's the most important job in the comedy show, because if things don't get rolling down the track the right way, the audience already loses confidence in the whole night out. So it's really important for an MC to do a good job. So a few things I always do. If you're working with the same person multiple nights, it's a little bit easier because you can start to kind of see what they do in their show. And I would take, if that's the case, say you're doing a week at a comedy club, after the first night, I would watch everybody just act really close. And if I had any jokes that were similar in any kind of way, even just content or topic, I would always just remove those so that when they told their story about whatever, it was the first time the audience heard it, and it made that story a little bit funnier. So that's one thing I'd always do. With crowd work, I would do that on the front end. I would welcome everybody out. Obviously, people can have little conversations going, and you have to kind of squash those a little bit. And the way I always did that was by asking people to raise their hand if you're celebrating here tonight. So they raise their hand. If there's more than 4 or 5 groups, if they all yell out, then I can't do anything. But if I see them raise their hand, like, oh, we got 4 or 5, I'm going to start over here and work my way around. So people know when their time is coming. They're patient that way. and then just talk directly to the group for 10, 15, 30 seconds. Who's celebrating? What's the event? Okay, everybody give them a big round of applause, you know. And if I have a joke that goes with a birthday or with an anniversary or with a proposal or any of those things, I'll throw that little joke in there. They don't expect it because they don't think the show's really started yet. And I'd kind of win them over one joke at a time. So by the time I get done with my announcements, they've heard 5 or 6 jokes. And then I always say, great, I'm glad you guys are out celebrating that. Let's get the show started. And that gives them a clear transition that your time to talk is over. Now it's my time to do my thing. And then I would wrap up, you know, my whatever remaining time. If it was 10 minutes out of the 15, I'd make sure that I built solidly and ended on the best laugh I had and brought the feature act out from that. But I would never do the crowd work or asking the questions at the end of my set, because then you have to reset the fact that the crowd can't be talking to the comedian. Some comics do a lot of crowd work, so they don't want a comic in front of them doing any crowd work. It's just like talking about the same kind of topic. It's not as interesting or as fresh or as new or as surprising. If the MC did 15 minutes of crowd work, then the feature, if that's what they're primarily doing up there, it kind of waters down. You know, they're going to probably be better because they're more experienced, but it still kind of waters down their approach of what they're doing on stage. And then I always ask the first thing, as soon as I see the other acts, I get their intros. I get them, you know, long before the show, music starts to happen and you're getting ready to go on stage. Make sure you have that stuff in your back pocket, because a lot of those comics want to get there, let the club know they're there, then they kind of want to go somewhere and kind of work on their material in their head and have some quiet time. So I don't want to bother that. But when they come in the door, I'll say, hey, I'm your MC tonight. Got an index card here. Just let me know 2 or 3 little things I can say about you, and I'll get that out of the way now and I won't bother you. And they'll appreciate that. Some of the more experienced comics might have one printed out already and just hand it to you. And that's one thing that's over the years doing corporate events, and churches always have a printed intro that's really big letters on half a sheet of paper that anybody just about can't mess up. Just very clear. And just hand that to them so they don't have to even write anything down and those kinds of things. And then at a club, realistically, your job is to keep them entertained and you're the face of the show, but they need to sell their drinks and their food and that kind of stuff. So make sure, even if you're not even funny for 15 minutes, but you get the announcements right and they sell more of those items, you'll be asked to come back. Some MCs don't want to be the person that announces those kinds of things, but that's really your job. So again, you're kind of, somebody said it like this. This is a better answer than everything I just told you. The MC works for the club, the feature act works for the headliner, and the headliner works for the owner. So if you think of it like that, you're there to work for the club to make sure things are running good there. The feature act is there to set the headliner up right, and the headliner is there to make the owner look good for hiring him. So that's a better way of saying it with the other stuff rolled in. Hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Did you say you had one more question there?
Yeah, I did. I see a lot of comedians, a lot of the guys that I like are telling stories, and a lot of the stories have character voices, and they're really acting them out. And I know, some of your best bits have voices and like really kind of intense act outs. And so, like, I guess how do you work on that, or what do you do to get better at that sort of thing?
That's a great question. Well, first thing I'll say is for those things to work well, they have to know what your voice is first. So I would never launch right into a bunch of voices and characters right out of the gate, because it really looks psychotic. They're like, what is this? This person isn't on. I mean, it's really like that. And when I first started, I was really high energy right out of the gate and did a lot of crazy, I wanted to be Steve Martin. So obviously nobody can pull that off, but I made the crowd uncomfortable in a bad way a lot. So you kind of want to establish who you are, and then through your your vision and your lens, you can talk about your parents or your crazy uncle, or do an impression, those kinds of things, and kind of roll them in. But if you do those right out of the gate, it's tricky. Now, as far as when do you act stuff out, it's a lot of it's experimentation. And for me, I would usually act stuff out after my punchline as they were laughing. Then I would act out and amplify the punchline. So I would give them a little something extra to laugh at. I would try not to make my punchline depend on the act out itself. Because if that crowd, or, even all crowds are different, but some crowds, some parts of the country, they don't like physical comedy as much. So if I'm depending on the physicality to get the laugh and not the words and the misdirection and the structure of the joke, then I might miss the laugh altogether. And then it gets really awkward because you just did something really big on stage and nobody responded to it. So just like with jokes, I would have something to say if that happens. You know, a saber line, you know, if you did something really abstract on stage and nobody laughed, then I would say something like, oh, and for more on that punchline, go to awkwardsilence.com. Just acknowledge that you knew something went wrong there, and then I wouldn't do any more of that physical stuff for a while and try to get them back on track with the jokes.
All right, so now we get to let's hear your material now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do this one. It's my favorite joke that I have. I'm a high school teacher, and last week on my way to school, I killed a bunny. Yeah, the one day I walk. It's ridiculous. I stopped to take a rest. I killed the bunny, broke a bench, ruined my pants, and it really shook me up because I administer the ACT. So the only thing that I'm used to killing are dreams.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. That reminds me,
That's
and I
good.
cannot
Very
think
good.
of the comedian, but there is a comedian that, oh, what is his name? Rick, you might know who it is. He said he was a teacher, and he said his first day there, the principal called him in with a parent who was irate and said, "Did you call my kid stupid?" And he said, "I would never call anybody stupid. I asked her, 'Are you stupid?'" But it just hit me funny, and I cannot think of that guy's name.
That's a good joke, though.
Yeah, he's pretty funny. So, Rick, where are you going to be here in the next few months? You said your summer's starting to book up.
Yeah, the next thing I'm at is this Saturday in Granville, Tennessee, which is a couple hours east of Nashville, at a Mayberry weekend car rally and comedy show. So if that doesn't grab you, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
But I'll be there with other people that were in the Mayberry Man movie. There's a guy in Huntsville, Alabama, Alan Newsom, who does an incredible Floyd the Barber. And we're going to both be doing some stuff together and some things on stage. I'll be doing my comedy there as well. It'll be an outdoor event, socially distanced, which most people stay as far away from me as they can anyway. So but that's the next thing coming up. Most of my stuff is all corporate or private events where I can't get anybody to come see me outside of those companies and those churches and those kinds of things. But I will say, if something comes up in your neck of the woods, I'll let you know so you can spread the word and have people come out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We are Central Kentucky, so Lexington, Bowling Green, Louisville, and even Owensboro up to Indianapolis. As far as that's within a couple hours. I have a lot of people in the southern Indiana area as well. So, yeah, absolutely. And if you drive up I-65 and don't give me a shout, I will drive to Nashville myself and have a word with you.
All right.
I'm right down the road from Cracker Barrel.
That's right. Well, I know where you're at. I pull over on that exit and hit the Goodwill on the way back, see if they got anything. I'm always looking for a bike nobody knows the value of, and they gave it to Goodwill.
Well, it's raining. You better not stop.
And I was going to say,
I said, if it's raining, you better not stop at Cracker Barrel.
That's right. It could be a tornado right around the corner.
yeah. Well, I was going to ask Dave if he had any material, and then I just realized all he has to do is show us his shirt.
Oh, and they're best friends, so
Now,
go figure.
now, Rick, let me tell you a story on Dave.
All right.
This is a guy I have known for nearly 40 years. Now, he's got vision issues as well. And so he and his wife went out with my wife and I one day. Well, in my garage, you pull into the garage and our steps are on the left. You've got to go up the steps into the kitchen. Well, when we pulled in, my wife's driving, Dave's sitting directly behind her. I get out of my side. I mosey my way around the car. Well, Dave's already out, but I have to get past him to go upstairs. So, I'm just naturally going to wait for him. And this is that you have to be there moment. So I wish I could make it funny like you guys do. Well, he's in my way, but I'm waiting. He says, John, go ahead. Okay. So I'm walking up the steps and I learned that he had lost some weight. So his pants were a little bit baggy and got stuck in the car door when he shut it. Okay. Well, that's funny. So I walked in the kitchen and I yelled really loud. I said, Dave's going to be a while. Well, just being goofy. And then I hear him cackling so hard he couldn't even hardly speak. I'm thinking, why is he still standing there? Well, my wife got out of the car and locked the door.
Oh.
So now he's stuck in the car and the door is locked and he can't move. And that was one of those moments that it struck me really, really funny. And I literally was killed over laughing so hard, tears coming down my cheeks. One of those beautiful moments. So, yeah. That's this man right here, the brilliance of Dave's pants in the door.
Only I can create that.
Oh man. And then
Well, Rik, go ahead, John.
No, you go.
I just wanted to hear some of your testimony and why you decided to go into comedy.
What, Dave, you missed the first part of the show. He gave the comedy part, but not the testimony.
Hey, sorry.
That's all right. You know, just in one sentence, I went to a place to do play guitar one night, but I didn't know it was a comedy show until I got done. So, you know, part of my testimony is I think God put me there to eventually become the comedian that I've become. I don't think he put me there to become the comedian I was the first 10 years, to be honest with you. I think he probably would have looked at that and said no. But along that road, after 10 years of traveling the country, you know, working 50 weeks a year, I'd take 4th of July and Christmas off, and that was it. It was just, you know, 4 or 5 nights a week, nonstop for 10 years. I was pretty exhausted. And I was playing places with comics and people who, you know, they weren't Christians for sure. I've never bumped into one single Christian comedian in 10 years, or not one that mentioned it anyway. So that's kind of gives you the idea of the people I was hanging out with. But I was coming back from a gig and I had pulled over actually just outside of E-Town, really close. It's the exit up north of where the Cracker Barrel is, where the Hanes t-shirt underwear factory is.
You're thinking Bowling Green.
Through the Loom.
You're thinking Bowling Green.
Yeah, Bowling Green. So south of E-Town, north of Bowling Green.
Yeah.
So I pulled over and I just prayed because, you know, I hadn't prayed in a long time, at that probably more than 10 years. I just prayed. I said, God, I think that I'm supposed to be doing something with this comedy thing. It's definitely not what I've been doing with it. And I'm just about overdoing it altogether. So, you know, if there's anything I should be doing, you know, let me, you know, be quiet enough to hear or you know, pay attention enough to see what it is. I just don't know. And really, there weren't any opportunities for Christian comics at that time that I knew of. And, you know, I was kind of teared up a little bit and kind of got my senses back together and hopped back on the road a little bit. And by the time I got to Bowling Green, you know, on the other side of Scottsville Road, I got a phone call. And it was a guy who was booking a Christian comedy show called Bananas. And he said, have you ever thought about doing a clean set for a Christian comedy show?
Dang.
And 10 minutes beforehand, I had just prayed for
That's
some
crazy.
kind of sign for some place I can take this comedy that I could, you know, utilize it for good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told the guy who called me, Lenny, I said, actually, you may not know that you're an answer to a prayer, but you are. And yes, I'd love to do it. I've never have, but I can, you know, it was 2 weeks away. I said, in 2 weeks, I can clean up a few jokes that probably aren't where they need to be, but everything else is fine. I can do an hour show. He goes, well, if you slip or slide and say something you should, they'll take it out before they put it on the DVD. So I'm like, a DVD? He goes, yeah, it's going to be on TV and DVDs. And so 2 weeks later, I did the show. And then the first show I did after that at a comedy club, I thought to myself, I just did an hour clean. Why would I ever do anything else? Now that, you know, God answered my prayer, I need to honor what he did. You know, multiple things he's done for me, but the fact that he put me in a position where I could do a clean show. I would hate for anybody to see that Bananas program and then come to a comedy club and see me not doing clean material and not being Christ-like. So that was a turning point. That would have been 1999, maybe 2000. And so I just decided from that point on, I'm going to clean up my act, get rid of jokes. I had jokes that weren't dirty or filthy, but they just weren't Christ-like. And if Jesus was in the front row, he wouldn't like it. So I dropped those. I gave some of those bits to other comedians who are working the roads, and you have it, I'm done with it. And just from that point forward, thing after thing opened up to where I heard about the Christian Comedy Association. I'm like, well, that sounds like a great group of people to hang out with. And so I went there and taught some comedy classes and met a bunch of hilarious people. I'm like, oh, this is great. There are places. And they're like, yeah, we do shows in churches all the time. Like, church, South Elkhorn Baptist Church on Versailles Road never had a comedy show when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know comics could be in a church. So then I started doing some of those things. And, then I found out that a lot of these fundraising for missions groups, they need to have a comedy show to raise money. So that's a place I could use comedy and do something good with it and impact people in countries I'll never probably even get to visit. They're building schools down in Haiti because of shows I'm doing with new missions and different groups. So all those things are the results of prayer. And in the beginning of comedy, I didn't put, 2 and 2 together. Didn't realize why I was there, but I spent 10 years getting good at telling jokes. And then the last 20, making sure those jokes actually have a purpose besides just the audience laughing for my benefit. So it's kind of a rambling testimony, but that's all what it is. And that's the truth. Awesome. And that's the way it's kind of happened in my life. None of it's been planned. It's just kind of unfolded that way. I wish I'd learned more earlier about the Christian Comedy Association. That's why I'm big now. I teach comics to make sure they know about that option right up front, even if they're not Christians. Mm-hmm. The worst thing that could happen is they go and not funny at the conference, but they might learn more about God.
Yeah.
That's awesome stuff. Thanks for sharing that.
No, absolutely. I was hoping somebody would ask me, because that's another thing I prayed for before we started, was to give my testimony, and sometimes I completely forget about it, which is not a good thing.
Well, with Dave in the show, you're going to get asked.
Good.
That's kind of his go-to question, and I love it because this show really is formatted to connect everybody. I love the connection that the guests and the people who know you get to do, but I also enjoy the ministry aspect of it. It's kind of blown me away on that aspect. It's just like, wow, there's a lot of ministry that goes on, and this was really kind of an entertainment fun thing to do, but it's turned into a lot of ministry, and that blesses me to sit back and listen, and for people to get to know the people behind the persona that they would see at Dry Bar Comedy. So that's kind of what I'm about here, to get your personality, your testimony, that type of thing. So with that, I have a go-to question, and I'm surprised Dave didn't say, well, John, ask yours.
Before you ask that question, I'm going to give you a heads up. It's 10 till 9.
Yeah. I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm keeping an eye on it, I said. Okay.
No, that's
how about, and I usually ask it to the musicians that I have on here, like John Laurie from Petra. He gave us an answer that really sticks out, where he went to the edge of the stage to shake some hands along with, I believe it was Ronnie Cates at the time, and the stage gave in. Ooh. And collapsed, and it just was chaos. So any embarrassing, unforeseen, all right, you got to be kidding me moment that sticks out more than any others? And I like the embarrassing ones a lot. So sure, you can use one of those, or just a place that you get to and it's like, what did I get myself into here?
Oh yeah, plenty of those.
Anything like that. Yeah, just some stories, some fun behind the scenes stories.
The ones that come to mind right now, I was doing a show one time for a Cattlemen's Association in Norfolk, Nebraska, way out in the middle of nowhere. And as I'm doing this show, this is during a steak dinner, by the way. Cattlemen's, they have the biggest steak dinner.
Okay.
As I'm doing the show, a cow walks into the room and comes right up next to me. It's almost like they had a remote control. It came right up to me, and it started chewing on the cord of the microphone. And so, wow. And they were dying laughing. I had to wait for them to quiet down so I could really say anything. And I said, I ordered mine rare, but I didn't think it'd be this rare.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
that one makes a strong memory. And I've had plenty of, I do this show used to be 3 or 4 times a year, but last year they slowed it down for an RV association. And they always meet in these big 4-H centers, so they have a big community center. They don't always have a good sound system. Rarely do they have a good sound system. Well, I play guitar on my show, so I need a microphone stand. And the guy who's hired me, he knows this. He's had it every time. But this time I get there and there's no microphone stand. He goes, we just have this little clip-on mic. It's like one of these deals. He goes, that's all we've got for you. He goes, they have a wireless mic, but they don't have a stand for it. So you'd have to hold it and play guitar or just sing through this thing. So I said, do you mind if I just get creative? He goes, whatever you got to do, man. So I started looking around this big 4-H hall, and I found a really long broom handle that they would sweep up the place afterwards. So I put that right next to the stage. Then I went in the bathroom and took a roll of toilet paper, took all the toilet paper off it, and put that little paper towel thing on the end of the broom. And I got some duct tape, wrapped it all around, and the microphone fit perfectly in there. So when I got to the singing part, I said, "Hey man, push that broom over here." So he pushed the broom over and he leaned it up against the stage. I put the microphone in there in the places. Thought it was hilarious.
That's awesome. Where was this?
When was it?
No, where? What state?
It was probably in Florida. We did a bunch down in
Okay,
Winter Haven, Florida. So it would have been fairly close to Orlando.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe somewhere like our states, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee would have been even better.
Yeah, Kentucky would probably be on the end of a tobacco stick or something.
Yeah.
And then I'll leave you with this other third one that is my favorite unexpected. It was an unexpected laugh. I guess the situation was kind of not too crazy, but I was on a cruise ship and we were in Roatan, Honduras. And we ported up there for the day and people went out and did all these excursions. And it was, I don't know if you've ever been to Roatan, but it's not developed. So it's, there's not much to look at. Basically every place that they had open for selling stuff just had like shells that washed up on the beach and they would put a price tag on it. So we're ported up there and I've got a show that night and then we're still there. We're not shipping out to sea like we should be. And it's almost showtime. We should have been gone 4 hours before that. And nobody on the cruise ship ever announced why we were still there. And like most of the electricity on the boat was dimmed or the lighting was dimmed. What had happened is they lost power, but they didn't want to tell everybody that they'd freak them out.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get to my show and they've got enough power in that room for me to do it. And so I walk out and go, man, I don't know about you guys, but I really like Roatan. Pretty primitive, but I bought one of these conch shell lamps, and I plugged it into the boat this morning and I knocked out the power on this entire cruise ship. And the place just went, it was like a 2-minute laugh because it was one of those things where comedy is tension and release. There'd been tension all day long. Nobody knew why we were still there or we lost power.
Yeah.
Comics job just to find a way to release that tension. And when I did that, it was one of the biggest surprising laugh to me I've ever got. Because I thought it might get a chuckle. And it was just like, it lasted so long, the cruise director looked out from behind the curtain. He's like, what's going on out there?
Wow.
Why are they laughing and you're not talking? I'm like, I got lucky with one joke, But there's a lot of weird stuff over the years,
Yeah. Well, Rik, we're closing in on the end, but we have a new guy that just popped in. We're going to let him, if he wants to speak up, but do you have time for one more round of a quick comment or answer?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. If not, if you got to go, just let me know.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So Sherry, you're up. If you want to say one more thing.
One more thing. No, joking. Okay. Is there any time where you're coming to like St. Louis?
There's 2 churches that are rescheduling stuff that got canceled last year. They're not directly in St. Louis. One's really close, Ferguson, and it'll be an open to the public event. The other is a little bit south. It's down in Marquand, Missouri. And the third thing that's coming up is north of St. Louis, up in I can't remember the name of the town. It's, if you go straight up the Mississippi River, what's a little bit further up than St. Louis. It's called the Bluff City Comedy Festival. I can't think of the name of the town right now. And that's
not Hannibal, is it?
Hannibal, Missouri. That's where it's at.
That's where Mark Twain's from.
That's exactly it. And that's supposed to be in the last week of September, I think. If you want to know for sure and keep in contact, I've got a comedian Rik Roberts page on Facebook, or if you go to my website, there's a place in the right column where you can join my newsletter list, and I always send out when I'm doing public shows.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love St. Louis. It's a great town.
Yeah, I don't live in St. Louis. I live south from St. Louis. I actually live in Arnold, but yeah,
Yeah, that show in Ferguson might be a good one for you to come see. Once they get that rescheduled, I'll let you know for sure.
Okay.
Oh, and Rik, don't forget you have a Henry Cho story to tell us.
Okay.
So, all right. So, see, Chester, I think, left. Paul, welcome in. It's a little bit late in the show, but if you want to speak up really fast to Rik, go ahead.
Hey, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I'm just a huge Rik Roberts fan. We've gone to church together for a few years, and I just love that the guy that you see on stage is the guy you see off the stage. He's just a good, solid guy. I've actually got him into biking some now too, and I'm just trying to convince him that if he just does a little swimming and a little running along with that biking, we'll get him in a triathlon. And so
I can see him doing it.
but just a great guy, man. I really appreciate Rik.
Thanks, Paul. We miss you at church for sure. And, you know, we finally got to have a little volunteer opportunity this past weekend. It was great just to be in the building and see some other people. And, you know, most of it was outside the building, which was even better as far as the virus and things. But, yeah, we miss having you around, you know. And I did 57 miles today. I was going to try to rattle off 70, but I had to get back here and get on the phone call. But 57. Went from my house, basically, Shoots Branch up to Mount Juliet, Providence, and all the way over to Ted Rhodes Golf Course and back. Covering some ground for you.
That's what happens when I drive, except it's not on purpose. Well, thanks, Paul. I'm glad to have you in.
Yeah, Paul's a triathlete, and if I could swim, I would definitely get into it. But I think that would be the hardest thing to find. Maybe it's just me. Paul, did you swim in the lake a lot to practice, or were you always at the Y or some pool somewhere?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I actually prefer downstream swims. They're a lot easier on the body and a lot faster too. So
No doubt.
if you can find a spot where the current's moving, don't try to swim against it. Just go with it. It just works out a whole lot better. So.
Well, you know,
My bad, Rik. Go ahead.
Well, you know, Paul got me fired up to start running initially, and then I went too quick, too fast, and had the plantar fasciitis thing kick in. And the biking, it doesn't affect that muscle at all, really, and it helps kind of loosen it up. So I kind of got full into biking, and I'm curious if I can maybe get back into running a little bit. Do you have any tips on that, Paul? How I can get back in without, you know, going through that whole painful event again?
Yeah, I'm not sure everybody else is really interested in this, but but the key is just to go slow and ease back into it. You know, make sure you got some good shoes and just don't jump in too fast.
Yeah,
I have that pain, Rik. I started a workout program, and yeah, I haven't worked out for a week or so, and the pain's going away, but I got to figure out how to get back into it. But my sister just got a shot in her foot. She said it hurts but it works. But the shot's really painful.
Yeah.
Well, Rik, start off running with a fat guy and you'll be all right.
I've actually got shot in the butt with a airsoft gun before.
Well, just for the record, I am tried to be an athlete.
I've tried to be an athlete. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I. Yes, I am tried to be an athlete.
Yeah, I might be a biathlete. I have to buy somebody's results.
Yeah,
put those in my name.
You know, you had a little segment on your Dry Bar Comedy where you talked about exercising, and I can't remember exactly how you said it, but they wanted you to get on an exercise program, and you said, "I really don't." How did you say that? Now,
yeah. He said, you need to get on you need to change your diet or exercise program." I said, "What diet should I get on?"
Yep.
Diet. I said, "Man, that's a hard diet to stick to. You're supposed to smoke cigarettes and eat bacon all day."
Yeah.
Atkins diet.
You know, Rik, you know what I thought you said? I thought you said change your diet. I thought you said diaper.
change your diaper and exercise programs.
Yeah.
If you're running so long you need a diaper, you probably have done some things wrong.
Yeah, when you said there was a part of it though, you said change my diet or change my exercise. You said it's pretty difficult because I'm not involved in either program right now.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's it.
I don't have either program running right now.
Yes.
Yeah, that was great.
One, then change it just to suit you.
Yeah, that was great.
That's it.
So, anybody else before we close this thing out?
Yeah, Paul reminds me of Gary Varvel. I don't know if you know who Gary Varvel is. He's one of the
Just
he's
another
one of the
good-looking guy, I guess.
He's one of the cartoonists. John Brania knows.
I
So
don't know.
check this out. Gary Varvel's son, Brett Varvel, was the main character in the Mayberry Man movie that I just talked about earlier tonight.
Oh, wow.
And so I met Gary. Gary's in the movie. He plays the mayor of the town in one of the opening scenes. And yeah, Gary's a great political cartoonist that wrote for did the Indy Star for many, many, many years.
Oh, wow.
But Paul, yeah, he kind of looks like Gary. I'll have to send you a picture of him so you can see what he looks like.
So,
All right, so let's hear this Henry Cho story since he's coming up in July, and I hope it's one I can razz him on. And by the way, his emails, he types like a Korean.
Look,
how's that?
Well, you ought to try to read his emails. I'm like, is he trying to combine the Knoxville, Tennessee and Korean accents together? Because I can't understand half the words he says.
yeah, he doesn't always use punctuation or capitalization either, so it's pretty.
Or spell the words right, or put complete sentences together.
Yeah.
That's my
Henry,
for texting.
I talked about my college, Bethany College up in West Virginia. In 1989 or 90, he was one of our comics that came through town. And we'd had maybe one or two comedians at the campus before that, but I was on the entertainment board, so I had to go to Pittsburgh, which was the closest airport, and pick him up. And I said, how will I know it's him? He's like, well, they showed me a picture. He's like, he's Korean, and you're going to have a Bethany College sweatshirt on, so he'll see you probably before you see him, and he'll come over and introduce himself. I'm like, all right. So I get the college van. I go to Pittsburgh to pick him up, and I'm standing there waiting by baggage claim, and I see him coming at me, and he looks very Korean. And he walks up and he starts speaking in Korean. He's like, "Pong chao pang tong tai." He's just messing with me. But I'm like, I'm sorry, man. But are you Henry? He's like, yeah, man. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm just
That accent, yeah.
yeah. He's very deep South kind of draw, but
Southern.
so
Learned that from his wife.
it was phenomenal. He got standing ovation. He was just an excellent. At that time, he had been voted and maybe even won the National College Entertainer of the Year award. He was just at the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Nashville. It would have been 10, 15, maybe 11 years after that. And so one of the first people I meet in Nashville is Henry Cho, the guy that ran the comedy club. Said, I've got 2 tickets to go see Dave Matthews at the Ryman Auditorium. I got 2 extra tickets. Would you like to go? I go, yeah, who's the other ticket for? He goes, I've got Henry Cho coming. I'm like, this is phenomenal. The last time I saw Henry Cho was in college. I've been doing comedy for 10 years now, so I'm doing what he's doing, not at the same level, but it'd be cool to kind of let him know that he was like the last comic I saw before I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually saw him at Rupp Arena, and it was a fundraising event, and Bill Engvall was there, Sinbad, Henry Cho, and I think one other guy. And Henry Cho stole the show. He was phenomenal. Just one of those, the best laughs or the belly busters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he had me killed over. Just, man, he's just fantastic. He's actually going to be here in E-Town.
Good.
Yeah, he's going to be right down the road from us. So not very far from the Cracker Barrel.
There you go.
There you go.
So
I'll come back to the Cracker Barrel, which
All
I had
them-
tonight.
With all them farm equipments hanging over your head.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Rik, buddy, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's been really good getting to know you better, and wish you nothing but success, and hopefully we can get you on here with a few of your buddies.
Hey, it sounds good. And it's good to see a bunch of my buddies, Paul, Chester, Jake, everybody that tuned in that I knew already, and nice to meet all the folks I didn't know before. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Well, you're more than welcome.